Today we're going to be installing EcoFlow's Power Kit 2. This is one of the easiest off-grid kits for your RV or your van build that you will ever install. By making this a plug-and-play design, you can pretty much eliminate installers, saving you a ton of money on other types of systems. So today I'm going to show you a basic setup when it comes to my RV. This is a 50 amp RV, but a 30 amp RV could be pretty much the same. It all depends on really the location you're going to be mounting it. So I'll show you how I did it here, and hopefully this video can help you out. Now there will be several boxes that will come in the kit, but don't let this deter you, as this is actually really well organized. Not to mention they have a template that helps you install the power hub, and every cable is actually designated to go into only one slot, so it's hard to mess up. Now I'm installing a 10 kilowatt system. Each one of these are lithium iron phosphate batteries, and they are also heated. They do weigh a lot, 85 pounds, and there are a couple different ways to mount them, like these brackets. These are also side specific, as you can see. Once you get the right one, it's only held in by a couple screws, which you'll just need a drill or a hand driver to put these on, and then you can move on to mounting it to your designated location. Now, since the battery is up against my RV, I did need a long extension. I'll leave a link of something like this down below, but they do provide the self-drilling screws, so this does make it easy to install. I ended up putting this over on the far side versus running both batteries down below because I wanted to stack the batteries. All I had to do was install these couple screws, slide over the battery to gain a little bit of extra room, and then tighten the screws down. Now you will get a designated battery cable for each battery, and the plug-in is just at the top of the battery, and this is where you will also find the main fuse in case that happens to pop, but plug this in and set it out of the way. Now again, these batteries are heavy, so use good lifting techniques. I did find one trick that if you take the towel, put it on top of the other battery, then you can easily take this battery, rock it, and just roll it right up on top of the other one. This allowed me to really not have to put much effort into lifting it at all. Then I could just remove the towel, place the two screws on each side like I did last time, and now two batteries are mounted. Now there is one thing that I did last night was I got everything laid out. I put the batteries down on the ground and I kind of pre-sized everything before I actually started the install. That's where it's going to save you a lot of time, is if you kind of have a general idea, or a good idea at least, of where you're going to put everything, because I did do a lot of pre-measuring with the template and more. So that's really what's going to make this install actually quite a bit easier. Now for the purpose of this video, I didn't install the brackets just to show you, but these brackets that go on the power hub, there's one for the top, there's one for the bottom, and 3 screws hold them in place. This allows you to mount it later, but you do need this template first. Now one thing that's nice about this template, it's pretty easy to read. It tells you how much room you need on the top and the bottom and plus the sides, and then it gives you 3 holes on where to mount it. I also checked the battery cables coming from the battery just to make sure that they would reach and look uniform when I did mount this. I used my screw gun to mark the holes, and then I ended up taking my drill and just simply drilling the bracket onto the back wall, and also used the provided screws. This will allow the power hub to just simply hang on, and then you just have to put 4 other additional screws at the top and 4 at the bottom, and then this is pretty much mounted and done. But I did decide to add 1 extra battery. Okay, now so after you add 3 batteries, this basically maxes out your power hub. You can do 3 batteries in line to do 15 kilowatts total, but if you want to expand farther, you will need the power dock. This is what's going to allow you to expand up to 45 kilowatt hours if you use 3 of these. Now I don't plan on going that far, but I do plan on maybe adding another 5 kilowatt battery there, so I will mount this in a little bit. I just have to figure out exactly where I want to put it, but I'm going to do a little bit of cable management right now, and then we'll get back to a couple of the other parts. So this is going to be my AC out cable, and that's just going to plug in right up there to the AC out function. And then what I did is I routed it behind the batteries, and then it comes over to this 30 amp plug, which you'll have to wire one of these on because they just give you the bare ends. So this 30 amp plug then goes down here to a 240 volt plug, which, because of the way my trailer is wired, I can still run all the functions, but of course I am going to be limited to the 5,000 watts obviously. But this goes to my generator inlet box. This is what makes wiring this super simple, is if you already have one of these prepped, this goes to a transfer switch, and then of course it determines whether you're using this generator inlet box or are you using shore power. Now, of course, I understand not everybody is going to have a generator inlet box, so what you want to do the best way would be to hire a mobile RV tech This way you can have them install a transfer switch, and this will make your life so much easier versus going to a dealer. They're going to charge you higher rates because they have a lot of overhead. A mobile RV tech can install one much cheaper and much faster. They can do it all in one day. It'll probably only take them about 4 to 5 hours to do it entirely, and that way you can now utilize the power hub much easier by just having a transfer switch. You can easily go back and forth, and that can just save you a lot of time. Now if you want to install one yourself, they're not terribly hard, but it does take a little bit more skill, and they run anywhere from about $200 to maybe $350 on the type that you get. Okay, so there is all 3 of my batteries. Now I have these just kind of tucked, the excess slack is tucked behind the batteries, and then we're going to plug them in 1, 2, 3. I have my AC wired there. That way I kind of get an idea about my cable management. So go ahead and pop off all 3 of these. Plug in number 3, plug in number 2, then we'll go ahead and plug in number 1. Okay, now right now this is ready to be used because I do have it plugged in over there to my generator inlet box. But I still need to finish hooking up the display center that's inside the RV, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Now this little part here, this is your power kit console. This might be the hardest part of your install depending on how you have to do it. I ended up having to run this data cable, which this is just a CAN bus cable, and up here is where I had my old generator start, and there is a remote cable that was there, so I ended up having to take some of this, disassemble it, and then run the cable all the way forward. Now this part of your install is obviously going to be a lot different in every single trailer, or depending on your build, but this part took me about a good hour just because I did have to run some other solar cables so I could have this back online, at least for my trailer build. But overall I'm going to have mine installed right here. And I don't even think I'm really going to need to cover this. I might later, so we'll see what happens with that. But I did take a piece of scrap wood to make a backing plate, which then I took the mounting plate, which this is held on by a really strong double-sided sticky tape. I did need to remove a little notch off of it, but then mounted it on, and then I did utilize 2 screws, and then simply the console goes on and plugs in and just snaps and slides into place. Which again, running the wire was the hardest part, but after you're all said and done, it actually looks original. Okay, so I ran the data cable just all the way over here like so, and we're going to go ahead and plug this into the power hub. Now because we don't have anything that goes here, they do give you this little jumper to put into place. This is just going to help with the communication so you don't get errors, so go ahead and install that. Okay, now we have our DC out cable. This is going to provide us 12 volts or 24 volts. And you will have to put some connectors on here, and depending on how you want to wire this. Now, if you want on your RV, you can actually wire directly in and not have a battery at all, so you can completely bypass the battery compartment and save all this room and not run a standard battery setup. Because since this has a 100 amp output now, it has plenty of power to run all the DC functions in your RV. Plus, if you have 4-point leveling like I do, it actually has enough power to do this. I already did one trial run earlier just to make sure that this worked, and it does. But there is one thing you may want to consider. Now, in order to run your RV, that means you will have to have that DC circuit on the whole time. So if you wanted to come out and just turn on lights, or maybe auto level, or if you had any other functions you wanted to use in your trailer, you would have to make sure that this is always on, and so that will be drawing maybe just a little bit of power. So then what you may want to do is add just a regular 12 volt battery, and EcoFlow now makes their own lithium battery. But because you won't need a lot of power, you can downsize your battery and just use these batteries, because you can actually take this and charge this battery. Now, it won't charge it all the way to 100%, but it'll charge it to about 85 to 90% because you will get 13.6 volts out of there. And so it makes it pretty close, but it won't always be 100% on here, but it's still going to be enough. And then you just wire it like you normally would, and you no longer need to have a big battery bank like a 300 amp hour, because you're going to be using all of this and this just for when you do have this off. You can still use your trailer functions like you normally would. And I did want to show you just a little bit of the difference in cable size here. I mean, look at this. This cable here is much smaller than the new cable. This is the new cable for Power Kit 2, which is a 3 gauge wire. This one here is much smaller at a 6-gauge wire, so they really beefed this up to go from the 70 amps to the 100 amp output. And so we'll plug that in there. Now again, you'll have to figure out your cable management because all of these installations will just be a little bit different. And for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to fully hook up this 12-volt DC cable. One, you don't want to spoil your cables like this. That's not a good idea. You want to cut these down to length and then go ahead and hook them up accordingly to wherever it is you're going to have your battery, or if you are going to go directly into your RV or your van build, whichever one you want to do. You can leave an extra foot if you want, but definitely get rid of the excess because there is no need for that. Because when you leave these spooled up, these can create a lot more heat. They kind of generate like this little energy field, and they'll create a lot more heat when they're being used to their maximum potential. So that's why you want to get rid of all this excess. Plus you'll have less voltage drop. It'll be a little bit more efficient. So again, if you're going to install this, just get rid of the excess. But for this purpose of this video, when we finish just the quick install, I am going to leave this here because again, if I add another battery, more than likely this battery is going to end up going over here, and I will have to adjust my mounts and a new strap and stuff. But okay, so I put the power dock there. Now I wish I could have flipped it, only because that way the logo was actually facing the correct direction, but I want the cables to go this way because they're going to tuck under here and then go up, or at least go to the batteries. Now, in order for this to work, there is a connection spot up here, so I don't know if I'll run the cable down like this and then over and then into the power hub, or if I'll plug it in at the top up there and then run it along there, and then I can tie it down with some cable ties and then kind of come over here and kind of come up, because they do offer these cables, so these are long enough to where I can actually run it all the way up and around. And they do make these actually in a couple different lengths, I forget, but there are 3 lengths. I think it's like 2 feet, 4 feet, and 6 feet. So you'll have to check that way. If you do an expansion, then you'll kind of have to gauge on maybe how far you want to go. But I think this is a 4 foot. And that's just to give you kind of an idea. This isn't how I would have it fully, but it goes up there, just runs along the top, comes down here to the side, and then if I want, I can plug this in. So this might be a follow-up video just to kind of show you the expansion if I do go to a 20 kilowatt, or if I want to use a different battery, maybe a 2 kilowatt battery for the power kit. You can also use a lot of the other batteries and products from EcoFlow, like a Delta 2 Max extra battery. You can plug it into there using the same cables. The updates are coming, so you can do that. I believe some of them are already out and ready to go now, but probably within the next few weeks, or at least after you see this video, those updates should all be out. Now another item we can add is this EcoFlow Power Link. This is going to let us be able to monitor temperature sensors, tank sensors. We can even add relays to this and actually turn on and off like an own-in generator. If you happen to have that on board, or that's something you want to control, this Power Link can do all that. Now you will need another one of these RJ45 CAN bus cables, but this is included in part of the kits that you get. So, alright, so what you're going to have to do is find out where your main computer system is depending on the type of RV you have. It's going to be hidden behind one of these doors, such as this one here. If we remove this door, this is where you can find the main computer system to some of the RVs depending on model. This is where mine is. Now, because I have a Jayco with a J-Command system, there's a lot of additional sensors and items that are on this. So what I would do is run a jumper basically from here to the PowerLink kit. That way I can monitor on both systems, the stock one and on the EcoFlow. Now I don't know how that's going to affect the J-Command system. I assume there shouldn't be any issues, but I don't really know yet because this is a little bit new. So I'll have to just kind of see how it works. Now if I was going to install this, I would mount this somewhere and you would have one of the communication cables come from the console inside your RV to here. And then you would have the other cable then go over to the power hub. So one comes into here from the console inside your RV, and then the other cable is just going to go over to the power hub. Now this is where you're going to plug all of your wires into, and you just simply press the little orange button. You just press that down. It's kind of hard to see, sorry, but if you press that down, that'll allow you to then plug the wire into here on the back. And then once you get this all wired up, It just goes right into the bottom just like this after you get it all wired. That way you can just move this part around and have this mounted somewhere. Now, because of all the complicated wiring in my board and everything, I won't be using it just because I already have monitoring. So it's not something I would need. And if you already have it in your RV, then you probably don't need this either. But if you're doing a new build, or maybe you didn't have some of those options, that's something at least you can utilize this for. Okay, now EcoFlow does have their own AC/DC smart distribution panel, which is this right here. This is meant to replace this if this is something you wanted to do, so you can have all the smart features within here. So this will have all of your AC and DC circuitry, but this is kind of more for a new build, but it does have all the bus bars. It has all the knockouts. That way you can wire this in, and you can put all of your breakers just like you have here onto here, and even add double pole breakers if that's something you needed. So if you're doing a new build, then this is definitely something that you're going to want. But since this is already installed and this would require a lot of rewiring, then you'll have to decide if this is something you'll want to have replaced. All right, well, now that we have everything hooked up, let's go ahead and turn this on so we can do a test run just to make sure everything is working. So press the button and let that sit for about 3 or 4 seconds. And there it goes, pops up. Okay, now because there is so much stuff in here, we aren't going to go through everything. But again, here's your battery and it shows your voltage, tons of settings that you'll want to get familiar with. And also, one of the things you want to do immediately is go down here to the About section. Take a look at what firmware you're on and see if there's an update, because you're going to want to update this so you can get everything programmed correctly. If there's any mixing and matching of batteries, you'll want to do all the updates for that as well. I'm still on beta for this particular unit, so there's not many updates yet. I've only gotten the one, and so this is something that you'll want to keep an eye out on, especially if you're one of the first owners out on this, because there will be updates that'll continue to come out and you'll want to just check those. So far so good. Everything looks like it's working. And again, before you hook up your solar and before you start running your AC and DC circuits, make sure you check the updates. Do those first to make sure it's all ready to go. Then go ahead and start running through your power systems and start doing all your checking. You can turn on your AC, make sure that that works correctly and kicks up and turns on. And then there's our DC side. So that's going to start charging up that battery if it's low, which it was a little bit. And you can just hear now my that was the microwave just kicking on. So now we have AC power, which if we look down there, a little green light on our AC unit. So far so good. Everything seems to be working. Okay, so just a couple safety things that you guys might want to know just before you complete your install, or if you're looking at installing one of these, is that this is rated at 5,000 watts, so it is rated to put out more than 40 amps. So if you are installing this in a 30 amp RV, make sure you abide by your breaker sizes, your wire sizes, and more. Now, being that I have a 50 amp RV and the generator that was already in here, I had a Onan 5500, it was capable of putting out almost 45 amps, so my wire is already rated for that, going all the way to my transfer switch. Along with this adapter cable, not all adapter cables are the same. This one has a 105C rating on it, so it means it can handle up to 40 amps. So just be aware that when you are hooking this up to a 30 amp system, or depending on the type of build that you're doing, just make sure you're paying attention to your amps, your breaker sizes, and also your wiring. I hope this video helped you out, and I hope to see you in another one.